Alright, welcome back to Klinga Games. Today is week 4 of the QBA season against the Fossilized Fury. I'm going to do what I did last week and do a voiceover. I just think I like that one better. So I'm going to be playing the game and recording over it like I'm doing right now. So let's just go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the start of game 1. You can see my team and my opponent brought Weezing, Regigigas, Stakataka, Grimmsnarl, Venusaur, and Cinccino. I was really surprised right away to not see Torkoal and to not see the Sun mode. And I came in with a very set strategy of how to stop Regigigas Weezing, and it would not have worked very well versus Sun. So you can see I immediately knew what Pokemon to pick. I led Thundurus and Alakazam, and I had Porygon-Z, and then I was trying to figure out which one I wanted as my 4th Pokemon. The first 3 were all set in stone. I ended up settling on, wait for it, Indeedee, as a support Pokemon. Alright, he went to the very last second to pick his team, but Battle 1 has started. Alright, so he leads exactly like I expected, hoped, feared, Regigigas Weezing. My team did not have a great counter to it, strength-wise, so I went with a strategy, we'll call it that. So turn 1, I expect him to Dynamax, and I do not expect him to protect with Regigigas. I expect him to protect with Weezing, because he's worried that Alakazam will one-hit KO it. So, I use Trick and then Electro Web onto the Regigigas. Looking back, I took a big risk this turn. I should not have used Electro Web, I should have just used Thunderbolt. In my head, I pictured that I had Thunder, not Thunderbolt, so I didn't want to risk the accuracy without the rain. But I didn't. I could have easily just gone with 100%. But I risked a 95% accurate move, but it did not come back to hurt me, as you're about to see. So I managed to Trick, get his Life Orb, give him Eject Button, and I go ahead and hit him with Electro Web to get him out of here and to shut down their Dynamax turn 1. Normally you see Whimsicott run this because of Prankster, but because it's a draft league and I know his Pokemon and my Pokemon, I know that I outspeed his Dynamax threat. So I can go ahead and have Alakazam run it, which, as you can see, is very, very effective. And every week of this draft league makes me love Alakazam a little bit more. So then he brings in Cinccino, which I was very surprised to see. I didn't really expect to see Cinccino at all, much less on the first battle, but it actually does really, really well. It really surprises me how effective Cinccino is. So he did a really good job prepping, and Cinccino ended up being a pretty big threat. It actually, I think other than Gigas, got the most KOs for his team. So then he switches out Weezing. He wants to protect it for later and brings in Gigas, which I can't fault him for. But then that gives me a Prankster, so Thundurus then outspeeds Cinccino and is able to get a Thunder Wave on it. And then I can hit Gigas with the Expanding Force, which does a whole lot of damage thanks to my brand new Life Orb. And then he uses Bullet Seed, which Cinccino has an ability called Skill Link, that all the multi-hitting moves will always hit 5 times, which is also which is nice because, nice for me, nice for him. Because A, it turns like 15 base power moves into effectively like 125 base power moves. And every single hit has a separate chance of a critical hit. So technically those moves have a raised critical hit chance as well, which, as you can see there, got him the KO on Alakazam. Surprisingly, I would have held on if he didn't get that critical hit, but he did, and so Alakazam goes down, but that lets me bring in Porygon-Z, which is one of my favorite Pokemon on this team. because it just, once it's set up, once it's got the support it needs, it kind of just runs through teams. Which you can see I'm debating a lot on what I want to do here. I'm trying to expect if he's going to switch or not. If he switches, I want to hit the Cinccino, but if not, I want to hit the Gigas. I thought he was going to switch out here, so I didn't want to target the Gigas. And ended up going into Cinccino. And Porygon-Z maxes. I love the like jerky, like glitched movements it has. I really love the way they animated it. So Gigas protects, so even though he didn't switch out, I was lucky to not target into it with PZ. I targeted it with Thunderous. I figured I'd split my damage here. I'm at a pretty big advantage with their Dynamax effectively being gone, and Regigigas already below half health. So it's always smart when you're playing with a big lead to split your damage. And just kind of wear down the team. When you're trying to make a comeback, that's when you really need to focus in on individual Pokemon and risk being stopped with Protect. So he uses Rock Blast here. My Thunderous is defensively built. It's built with just enough speed to outspeed Gigas, but it has enough defense to survive some big attacks, including but not limited to a Max Strike from Regigigas. It didn't come up in these battles, but with the Chilanberry, Thunderous can actually survive a Max Strike from Regigigas. So if that situation came up, I would not be in too big of danger. So he switches out his Gigas and brings in Venusaur. I did call the switch here, and I targeted into the Gigas slot. Once again, Thunderous attacks into Protect, but Thunderous is really just here to chip. He's not really here to knock stuff out. And then PZ gets a free hit on Weezing, which just is a one-hit strike. And then Cinccino's already paralyzed, and it's got its speed lowered twice now. So they really can't do anything to PZ with it, because PZ easily outspeeds now. Then they bring out Weezing, which is their last full health Pokemon. And I'm just going to keep max striking stuff. I expected to lose Thunderous on this turn. I thought that Weezing would attack into it. So I went ahead and tried to set up a Rain Dance. PZ is running Thunder, which normally is 70% accurate. But in the rain, it's 100% accurate. Or, I don't know if it's even 100% accurate. I think it always hits. Because I hit Octillery when it was bounced up last week. So I think it always hits. I don't even think it's 100% accurate. I think it's better than that. But anyway, that's why I set up the rain here. I thought I was going to lose Thunderous, and I wanted the rain up when PZ's out of max. But they double protect, which gives me a free strike into Cinccino to take it out. And it also lets Thunderous stick around. And then their last Pokemon is Gigas, who's kind of just clinging to life here. It is still dangerous because Weezing is next to it, but outside of max, its best move makes it recharge the next turn. So even though it has the capability to one-shot things out of max, it does not have the capability to just sweep through entire teams by itself. So, really lucky that he didn't see that trick coming, and we were able to just whittle down his team after that, now that he didn't have a Dynamax to help stop our offensive strike. He does a good job of biding his time at the end, trying to think of a strategy, because he clearly was a little shook by the trick strategy. So good on him to use his full time for selecting his moves, especially when it's kind of a foregone conclusion. So he used that time to select the best Pokemon for each for the upcoming battles. So a really smart strategy. If anyone's watching this who is interested, if you're playing at a best of 3 and you know you're going to lose a game, go ahead and just take the time, let the clock run out, so you can figure out how to best respond to whatever's beating you in the upcoming games. So I was hoping to get a Hyper Beam knockout here against Weezing, because I love the Hyper Beam animation, but PZ misses it. So bad luck there. And then he just goes into PZ with Sludge Bomb, so both my Pokemon stay alive. And the next turn, it's an easy knockout for a 3-0 victory. Spoilers. Unfortunately, we were very close to Porygon-Z getting every KO this match, but Thunder has managed to get on the scoreboard, so I'm happy about that too. And then that is the end of Game 1. Pretty good victory by us, and we'll jump to Game 2. Okay, so Game 2, he's seen my trick strategy, so I cannot lead that anymore. So I had to come up with a second strategy that I can run. I went ahead and tried to do my Thunderous Porygon-Z strategy, which was I was hoping would give me the chance to just set up and just wipe out his whole team with PZ before his Gigas had a chance to be in a good position to take us out. And then I chose Glastrier in the back and Tauros because they both are my best physical attackers. And if he went ahead and brought the Stack Attacka, they both have 4 times effective moves to take it out. So getting straight into game 2, you can see he thought about it at the end of Game 1 because he immediately had his Pokemon selected, so he was waiting for me this time. And he led Grimmsnarl and Cinccino. Cinccino actually ended up being a pretty big pain in the butt for me. It did a lot better than I thought it would, and I really should have respected it more in my preparation, but you know, sometimes you overlook Pokemon. I did it 2 weeks in a row though with Octillery and then Cinccino, so I'll have to be a little more diligent next week. So I went ahead and protected Porygon-Z, and they set up a light screen. So when they set up the light screen, that kind of made me panic. And I gave up on my plan to max PZ, which I don't know if that was good or bad. I'll need to do the calcs, but I don't think Porygon-Z would have been able to pick up the KOs it needed to with light screen up on their side of the field. And then I also underestimated Cinccino's speed. I got an Electro Web off on his Pokemon, and I thought that meant that I would be able to outspeed his team. I was not correct. So I went ahead and set up the Rain Dance to give Porygon-Z the super accurate Thunders, and I was kind of hoping to fish for some paralysis with it, but I don't think I ended up actually getting any. We'll go ahead and watch the rest of the video. I don't think I got any paralysis with it. So he went ahead and went with Bullet Seed, which this Porygon-Z has a lot of investment in HP, very minimal investment in speed, which comes back to bite me here because I should have been able to outspeed it, I think, if I was max speed, but I was not. So, but that does mean I do take the Bullet Seed very, very well. And then Thunder does pretty big damage to Cinccino, but you can see where that light screen really hurts my chances here. And then his Spirit Break KOs Thundurus. So Cinccino still outspeeds Porygon-Z, which is a bit of a problem. And then I bring in Tauros the Sleepy, which I think is the only Pokemon with a mark I brought this week, which is kind of rare for me. I really like marks. And then at -1 speed, Tauros should be able to outspeed the Cinccino. And then I protect PZ again so that Grimmsnarl cannot hit it with a Spirit Break. PZ gets protected. Tauros gets its first KO of Draft League. Congratulations, Tauros. I'm very proud of you. I'm really happy I got to bring it. I really like Tauros. And then Protect pays off because their Spirit Break does not connect. So I would say he's off to a big lead here. We both have 3 Pokemon left, but my Pokemon are damaged, and Porygon-Z is at -1 special attack, which is a pretty big deal. So that kind of hurts me here. So there, Gigas protects, and so my Icy Wind does not do what I wanted it to do, which is slow down Regigigas. But that's okay. I slow down the Grimmsnarl, which I don't think actually matters at all. And then he protects against Hyper Beam. So if he was not maxed like that, even with me at -1 special attack and with Light Screen, that's still going to do a pretty decent chunk of damage. But then I get hit with another Spirit Break, lowering my special attack even more. And then so at this point I just fish for paralysis on Regigigas. I knew I wasn't going to do a whole lot of damage. I knew I wasn't going to max Porygon-Z, so there was no point switching out. So I figured lower Regigigas' speed, and then try to get paralysis on it if you can. And then he switches out Grimmsnarl to Weezing, which is a very smart move by him. It's always good when you're playing Pokemon like Regigigas and Colossal that are really, really good but need very specific support to play their best. It's good to be able to switch out and get the positioning you need in the late game, which my opponent does really, really well. So then they max their Regigigas, as expected. I didn't really expect them to max anything else this week. And then I do hit the Icy Wind onto Regigigas, which does, I think that's -1 damage, I'm not sure. And then I hit the Thunder, which does like more than I expected it to with the stat reductions on Porygon-Z. And then he hits Tauros with a Max Strike, which Tauros is not going to hang on to that, unfortunately. Especially when you get a critical hit, which doesn't really matter. I mean, it's a little bit lucky, but Tauros was going down crit or no crit, so no harm, no foul there. And then I bring in Glastrier, which is my last hope. If I can KO the Weezing with Glastrier, then I can probably win this game, because Regigigas loses a huge portion of its offensive ability without Weezing by its side. So I go ahead and I max the Glastrier, and I max Quake into Gigas as my kind of last resort. So there's my giant Ice Horse, who was actually Dynamax candied this time. I actually remembered to give him the candies. So he does have his maximum HP here. And then Weezing Sludge Bombs, KOs Porygon-Z. Probably should have protected, but, you know, it happens. And then Max Strike into Glastrier, who takes it pretty well. It's a solid 3-hit KO there. But Weezing is carrying the Shuka Berry, which is good information to have, especially for Game 3, but it means that Glastrier does not get the KO here, and that is kind of the end of this game for me, because there's no way that Glastrier is going to be able to beat a 3v1 at half health. So that was the point when this game was over. Just kind of playing it out, seeing what he does, and then getting ready for Game 3. So I go ahead and max guard here, get him out of Dynamax. I thought maybe he would switch for a different move than Giga Impact if he's out of Dynamax. But there's really not a whole lot I can do. So at this point, you're kind of just playing, hoping your opponent makes a mistake, and he does not make a mistake. Spoiler alert. Tiny Regigigas against my massive force, and you're about to see just how much damage Regigigas can do, max or no max. Because I was blown away by this damage when I played. Sludge Bomb takes me to not even half health, but it does get the poison. Doesn't really matter. My Glacier's carrying a Lumberry. And then Giga Impact, no max, takes me all the way down to 42 HP. So my opponent did not misplay, and Glacier is not going to be able to take this 3v1. It does get the KO against Weezing, which is nice, but I mean, there's not much else it can do. In order to beat this team now, I would have to KO Grimmsnarl in one hit, which at +1 it has the capability of doing, but it would also have to miss, Regigigas would also have to miss an attack after recharging. Because at this point it doesn't need Giga Impact. Any attack that Regigigas throws out with its massive HP is going to KO Glastrier. So I'm really, again, playing, hoping that my opponent misplays. And you can see I go for Icicle Spear, or I forget what I did here. Yeah, close combat into Regigigas. And then they fake out. So, well played by my opponent. They kept their focus at the end. Didn't let me get back in the game. And there's not a whole lot I can do, so we go on to game number 3 after they finish beating up my Ice Horse. Poor Glastrier. Alright, so game 2 is a loss, and we will go ahead and jump to game number 3. Alright, on to game 3. So, I figured they probably would not lead Weezing Regigigas again. I think my first game where I did it on turn 1 ruined their Dynamax and kind of won the game off that momentum. I think that they're not going to risk that again, so I went with a little bit more of an aggressive lead here with Indeedee Alakazam. That way that I have an offensive presence, but if they lead Regigigas Weezing, I can trick the eject button onto Gigas, but I would need to hit it a later turn. So it was a bit more of a risk here, but I figured I had to be aggressive after giving away my strategies turn 1, or game 1, and they lead Grimmsnarl Chinchino, which Chinchino was a lot scarier than I thought it would be going into this week, and then Grimmsnarl was just a really good support Pokemon for them. So turn 1, Indeedee does what it always does and follows me, and Grimmsnarl is not affected by Expanding Force, so I went ahead and did the single target Psychic just to maximize my damage. So we go ahead and get the Follow Me off. And then they use their Light Screen, which can be a bit of annoyance since Porygon-Z is my Dynamax option. And they go with Tail Slap, which, because of the skill link and hitting 5 times, does a pretty good amount of damage to Indeedee. It actually brings it under half. So I had a concern here that the next turn they would take out Indeedee, and Alakazam would be free to be hit by Grimmsnarl, but I got lucky as soon as they're done choosing their moves. I'm getting ahead of myself again. So I do Follow Me again because that's what Indeedee's best at. And then I get lucky and they do Bullet Seed instead of Tail Slap. So they do not get the stab. so it does not do as much damage as Tail Slap, and so Indeedee stays alive after the Cinccino is done attacking. Just barely, but it stays alive. So that after Alakazam uses Psychic here and knocks out the Cinccino, then Grimmsnarl hits into the Indeedee slot, and Alakazam A, stays alive, and B, keeps the eject button available. So that he doesn't burn through it right here. So then I go ahead and bring in my Porygon-Z. Eventually. There we go. Now I bring in my Porygon-Z. Okay, and they bring in their Weezing. So Weezing is a bit vulnerable, but we're in Psychic Terrain, and I figure they're gonna try to target down the Alakazam, get the eject button procced. So I go ahead and just Psychic into the Weezing with the Psychic Terrain, even though it's not stab. This would have done a whole lot. Unfortunately, they protect. And then I was right, and Grimmsnarl does attack into the Tauros slot. Or they attack into the Alakazam slot, but I switch in Tauros so that they cannot proc my eject button. So then I go ahead and just same move, Psychic into the Weezing slot, and I Body Slam into Grimmsnarl. So just the way this game is set up, I was planning on maxing Porygon-Z because it's an amazing max option, but where Grimmsnarl was staring it down, I didn't want to eat a Spirit Break, and they've still got their light screen up, so I did not want to waste my Dynamax on a Pokemon that they can pretty easily lower its special attack. So they go ahead and bring in their Regigigas here because they don't want to lose Weezing. I don't think they knew that I was carrying Psychic on Porygon-Z before that, so they try to be careful with it, and they didn't want to lose their Weezing right away. So then I hit a Psychic for pretty good damage, about a little less than half, I'd say about 40%, and then they do get the Spirit Break on Porygon-Z, so I was right not to max it here. So then I originally was going to target into the Gigas slot with Psychic, just get some more damage, but I eventually changed my mind, and I go with a really, really risky play here. Eventually. Keep getting ahead of myself. I took a long time on this turn trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So I went ahead and targeted into the Grimmsnarl slot with Psychic. So this was a big, big risk because obviously if they didn't switch, then I would do no damage with Porygon-Z this turn, and they would be in a really good position. But they A, get to keep 3 Pokemon on the field, which is really, really good for me in a second, and B, I actually do damage with Porygon-Z. So it's still a pretty close game here. We're both at 3 Pokemon apiece. So I go ahead and get my Icy Wind off, lower Regigigas' speed. That way Porygon-Z can actually get an attack off this turn. Gets a really solid Psychic off into Weezing. Since I knew it was carrying the Shuka Berry, I was no longer really afraid to target it with Psychic moves. I thought maybe it would have the Psychic Berry. I can't remember what the name is, but the berry that reduces Psychic moves damage. But once I found out that it was Shuka, then I kind of just went all in with my Psychic type Pokemon. And Porygon-Z, I guess, too. So then, this was the second biggest turn this game. Or I would say, no, this is probably the biggest turn this game. So I get to bring my Alakazam back in. And I went ahead, this was the move that would either win me or lose me the battle. If he protected here, then I would lose, but I figured he would probably get aggressive and try to just finish this game up really quick. And so I went ahead and tricked Regigigas again, switch up his life orb for my eject button, which is a completely fair trade. And I go ahead and hit it with Body Slam, which Tauros already outspeeds Regigigas, so I knew I could get that off. And then I get rid of their Dynamax threat after only one attack, which was very, very big for us. And then they're forced to bring in their Grimmsnarl, which is their only option left. Then Alakazam takes pretty big damage here, but I figured that Grimmsnarl would attack Alakazam with a Spirit Break, and I don't have Protect on it. So what I did here was I Dynamaxed my Alakazam just so I could have access to Max Guard, while Tauros targets down the Grimmsnarl. Which I was not expecting Alakazam to be maxing at all. Even like the entire season, I didn't really expect it to max. But late game, I've got my Dynamax left, and I really need to keep Alakazam's special attack up. I'm not so worried about the damage as much because it's resisted, but I really wanted to keep Alakazam's special attack at max. So I had to make do and get Protect somehow, so I had to max it. And Weezing, we got really lucky again. Weezing protects, obviously expecting a max Psychic from Alakazam. And then because they protected, we were free to attack him the next turn, because we both protected that turn. And then Alakazam is attacking Weezing. And then Tauros goes ahead and just keeps dealing damage into the other slot, just being a nuisance to the opponent. And he's clearly thinking about his moves a lot now too, because this is the end game right here. So we do get the max minus one off. They don't switch out. So they do lose their Weezing, and that effectively means they lose their Regigigas. Because at half speed and half attack, Regigigas is not nearly as threatening as it normally is. So then the Intimidate goes off by Tauros, and now we have the Magic Guard again on Alakazam, where we will not be taking Life Orb damage. And then luckily we get the Paralysis on Grimmsnarl, but it doesn't actually matter because they do get the Spirit Break off. So Alakazam's special attack is lowered, but they lose their Light Screen, and Psychic Terrain is up. So in terms of pure damage, we've actually had a net positive that turn. And then Regigigas is a slow start, so even though Tauros has its speed lowered with slow start, it would outspeed. But I go ahead and just do a Max Knuckle off of Focus Blast into Regigigas, and let Tauros go ahead and finish up the Grimmsnarl. So big ol' Max Knuckle from Alakazam here. Something I don't think he expected me to be running at all. And then Regigigas goes down. And then the attack boost onto Tauros, which does not matter in the slightest because Grimmsnarl is already at like very low HP. And Tauros goes ahead, gets the final KO, and closes this series out. So we win Game 3, and we win the series. Really, really good game to my opponent. It was a very, very fun game. I enjoyed it a lot. Whew. Oh, man. Those games were terrifying. Oh, my God. Really, really, really good game to my opponent. And, again, I apologize so much for the trick strategy, but I really had nothing else for Regigigas that reliably stopped it in its tracks. If I didn't have that, I would have been swept 4-0 every single game. Alright, so I'm going to go over my team real quick. The first up is Weird Z, the Porygon-Z, with a Life Orb. It had max special attack, most HP, and then just enough speed to outspeed a -1 Regigigas. Because one of my strategies, if he anticipated the trick strategy, was to lead Z Thundurus and Electro Web and then Max Strike. So it was EV'd to barely outspeed Regigigas after an Electro Web. and then just max HP. I actually, when I did the calcs, I actually would have only taken about 60% from a max strike with this EV spread when I was maxed. But you don't really want to risk a crit or risk E-Web missing. So that's why this was my backup strategy, not my... well, the E-Web and then max strike strategy was my backup strategy, not my initial strategy. It had Protect, Hyper Beam, Thunder, and Psychic. Hyper Beam, obviously just its best move. I forgot to give it PP ups, so I ran out the first game. It didn't matter because I ran out the turn that the game ended. But that was interesting. Thunder, I had to hit Charizard. I really expected the Sun mode and Regigigas as a kind of core, but I can see why my opponent didn't do that in hindsight, because if something was KO'd and Weezing had to come in with his weather Pokemon, then they would have been stopped. So I can see why he did it now in hindsight, but I was kind of trying to prepare for everything. And then Psychic was to hit Weezing as hard as possible. I didn't know if I wanted to hit Weezing or Gigas, but I figured it'd be good to have, and it really paid off at the end. This one, unfortunately, I don't have any ribbons. I traded for this one in GTS because I didn't want to change my other PZ's EV spread. Next up is Nurse Theodete, Pokesash. Same as always. Really good support Pokemon. Really good Pokemon in general. If anyone isn't using Indeedee for whatever reason, I highly recommend it because it's a really good Pokemon. The next up is Tauros, which I finally got to bring. I'm really happy I got to bring Tauros. With Assault Vest, it was max HP, max speed with 1 point into attack, with a Jolly Nature and Intimidate as the ability. I had Body Slam, High Horsepower, Close Combat, and Icy Wind. This was kind of if the Thunderous PZ lead. I know it's really like going into rabbit holes, but if the Thunderous PZ lead didn't work, I would have led this the next game after that to make him think that I gave up on the lowering his speed strat and hitting with max strike, but Icy Wind does the same thing. It doesn't hit as hard because obviously Tauros is a physical attacker, not a special attacker, but it would have served the same purpose. Body Slam, the best reliable stab attack it has. I could have gone Giga Impact, but I don't like the recharge turns, especially where Tauros probably isn't going to be knocking stuff out in one turn. High Horsepower was to hit the Weezing, but as we found out in Game 2, it had a Shuka Berry. And then Close Combat was to hit the Regigigas as hard as possible. And then it has the Sleepy Mark, if you didn't see that earlier. Next up was Thor, the Thunderous. This is actually a different Thunderous. You can see the original trainer is Dirk. Unfortunately, I didn't record it, but I did an all-ground playthrough of Pokemon White, or Black. I can't remember which one I did. Whichever one Thunderous is the legendary for. But then I caught Thunderous and moved it over. So that was what I did in the week leading up to this. It had just enough speed to outrun Jolly Regigigas. It literally, Jolly Regigigas is 1 point slower than it. So I had perfect EVs to not get outsped. Unfortunately, he had Chinchino, which did outspeed all of my Pokemon, which I really thought was surprising. And it wasn't Choice Scarf because it changed moves, so I'll have to see what he ran on that. I'll have to reach out to him and see what he did. But really interesting bring there. Electro Web, Rain Dance, Thunder Wave, and Thunderbolt. So Electro Web, as I mentioned before, was to lower Regigigas' speed, make PZ faster than it, and then hit it with a max strike. It would have taken 2 turns to KO, but I would have gotten double speed drops, so I would have stayed faster than Regigigas. Rain Dance is to make PZ's Thunder hit 100% of the time after max. Thunder Wave was, if I didn't like the Thunder Web strategy, I could have gone Thunder Wave onto Regigigas, and you saw me use it a couple times just to neutralize the speeds of threats. And then Thunderbolt was just a nice attack to throw onto it. This one also, it doesn't have a ribbon because it's brand new. Next up is Glastrier, which I changed the name to Cold Ride. It was running a Lumberry with max HP, max attack, and a Brave Nature. The Lumberry was... This was another strategy to beat Regigigas, but you can see at the end, it may have just been not having the support it needed at the end of the Game 2, but it was supposed to beat Regigigas, and the Lumberry was there in case Weezing used Will-O-Wisp, then I would have kept my insanely high attack stat. But when you're at 3 to 1, even Glastrier can't win that for you, especially when your opponent has Weezing Regigigas as 2 of their last 3. Icicle Spear, high horsepower and close combat. I was really only going to max it, so I just went with Icicle Spear because I figured that by the time it was out of max, it would have just been picking off weakened opponents, so I didn't want to be running a low accuracy move on that. High horsepower, obviously for Weezing, but it was running Shucaberry, which good play on my opponent. A lot of my Pokemon have ground-type moves, so just good play all around to expect ground-type. And then close combat. Close combat actually 2-hit KOs max Weezing when Glastrier is not maxed. Hey, baby. So Glastrier was my backup Regigigas option. Next up was the MVP of the game, and again, I apologize so much for this strategy because it's such a cheese strategy, but I mean, it's Regigigas. You have to come up with some kind of cheese to beat it, because you're not going to beat it just on strength alone. So it was Eject Button Alakazam with Modest Nature and Magic Guard as the ability. I knew that he would be running Life Orb on Regigigas, because that's what you always run. So I ran Magic Guard so that I would not get Life Orb damage after the switch. Expanding Force, Psychic, Focus Blast, and Trick. I didn't expect Grimmsnarl, so I should have ran Dazzle, but I was expecting Expanding Force if they didn't lead Weezing Gigas. I could have brought in Indeedee and used Expanding Force. And then Psychic was it's just stronger than Expanding Force, so that was my option if they did bring Weezing Gigas and I got the trick off. And then Focus Blast was for Stack Attack it, because I don't have anything else to hit it on Alakazam. And then the MVP move of the game is Trick, which I keep saying it, but I'm really sorry I had to run it. So I knew I couldn't beat Weezing, or I know I could beat Weezing in a game of Power, but I knew I couldn't beat Regigigas in a game of Power. My team isn't really built for that. So I got creative with it. And even though you usually see Trick on prankster Pokemon, like Whimsicott, but I knew Alakazam outsped everything on his team, except Shinjino, apparently. And so I knew it would work basically the same as prankster, because I would be getting it off first. And this one's the Rank Master. So that's my team this week. I'm really, really proud of them. They did a great job. And I'm kind of proud of my strategy. I know it's a cheese strategy, but I'm really proud of coming up with it. And I'm proud I got to make it work, especially in Game 3, where it wasn't in the lead. I actually had to maneuver my Pokemon into position at the end, and that was just a blast. I really, really had a great time. These games were super fun. Usually when I see Gigas on the ladder or in Showdown, I kind of cringe because I don't like facing Gigas usually. But this game was a blast. My opponent played really well, and he probably would have won if I didn't use the trick strategy. I would say he had like a 90% chance to win without that. So really good game to my opponent, and I really hope I don't see you in the playoffs, because then you'll know everything my team has to hit you. I'm gonna do another quick rundown of my opponent for next week. This is he actually is number 1 in the league right now, so it should be a really fun match. It's the Arctivesh Athletics. If anyone remembers my Poison type team in the Mono type draft league, the Arctivesh Athletics were the first opponent / only opponent I played, and they ran an Ice type team. And spoiler alert, they have the same core that was giving me fits in that game with Ninetales and Arctivesh. They also, unfortunately, have Colossal, Rillaboom, and Urshifu Water, so and Weavile. So, just to make a long story short, they have a very, very diverse team with 2 very, very good synergies on their team that can roll through any opponent that's not prepared for them. So this should be a very, very fun matchup, and I'm going to have a lot of fun trying to come up with a strategy to beat them. They have a YouTube channel as well, and I highly, highly recommend their videos. They have some really, really cool teams that they run. They play in tournaments, and he's a really, really good Pokemon battler. So if you like my videos, you should check out his channel. I'll put a card to his channel up in the top right corner. Okay, so that is week 4 of the QBA in the books. Really, really fun. I played better than I did last week, so that was a huge relief to me. My opponent played really, really good, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how the last stretch of the league goes, and hopefully we'll be in a good position in the playoffs, and we'll be able to make a push late in the season. I'm excited to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm excited to see where else I go, and then when this league is over, I should be posting some more ladder videos. I was going to finish up my Reggie trio teams. I have a Regigigas team, and it did make to Master Ball, like I like to do before I record them. But I'm going to be posting out these seasons, or these battles each week. So it won't be until like middle of Series 10 that I would have time to post it. And by then, Series 9 should be old tricks. So I'm not sure if anyone will want to see it then. But I will try and make a team. Heck, I may even try to make a Regigigas Series 10 team. That sounds pretty interesting. I might do that. But I'm also playing some Nuzlocke. I'm playing some challenge playthroughs. So whenever this league is over, I shouldn't say it like that. Whenever the league wraps up, hopefully with us in a good position at the end, then I will have some more diversity to my channel. So if you like Pokemon, if you like challenge videos, if you like Nuzlocke, if you like doubles battling, please like and subscribe. I post videos every week, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.